Boy, do I love it when I discover an old classic slasher that I have never even heard of. And Alice, Sweet Alice hits the sweet spot. Let's do this. Alice, Sweet Alice stars Paula Sheppart, Linda Miller, Brooke Shields, and is directed by Alfred Sole. What's up, guys? Quick shout out to Damian Maffey, good friend of mine. We talk deep cut slasher movies, and I'll admit he knows more than I do. And he recommended this movie called Alice, Sweet Alice, as well as Madhouse, which I bought that one too. But I know Alice, Sweet Alice is like near and dear to his heart, and I watched this movie twice, and I will say it is so refreshing when you find a new slasher. Well, it's not new, 1976, but it's new to me, and it's just, it feels so different than everything out there. Even different than stuff that came out in the 70s, really. I mean, it has some of that 70s flavor to it, but if you put it amongst, 100 other slashers, it definitely stands out. And I'm excited to tell you guys about it if you haven't seen it. Also, before I get into this, 88 Films released that this year, I believe, in the UK, and that's where I bought it from. And let me just say, they did like a full 2K scan of it. You can see right here the difference and how bad this film stock looked before they got a hold of it. They upgraded the audio, new 2K scan, got rid of all the dirt and specks. It looks great for a 1976 film. And one thing I'll say about preserving movies, Black Christmas is a great example. I don't want Black Christmas to look like slashers today. I want it to look like it looked in the theaters when it came out. If it's 16 millimeter, which this film is, then I want it to look like 16 millimeter. I don't want it to look like 1080p. But it looks glorious, I will say that. I enjoyed both times I watched this movie. Now, first, let's get into a quick plot synopsis. This is a very unique slasher movie because it really deals with a family dynamic. There is a murder that happens at the beginning of this movie in mass in the Catholic Church. The young child, Karen Spages, she's actually murdered violently, I might add. She's burned to death in a bench by this unknown killer, and the finger points right at her sister, Alice. And so throughout the rest of this movie, we're trying to figure out who killed Karen. And I will say the finger is firmly planted on Alice. And you even believe it's Alice. And I will say, I was pretty damn surprised by this movie, even if it was Alice. Now from here, let me just say this will be a spoiler review because this is a movie that came out in 1976, although many of you have not heard of this movie, probably. So I will say before you leave, go ahead and grab your coat, get it on, and get ready to head out the door. But before you leave, let me just say this is a great slasher film that you need to see. I think it's important, actually. So you are dismissed. Here we go. And if you don't really care about spoilers that much, if you are just wanting to know, okay, I don't care who the killer is, can I still enjoy this movie? I really think you can. Like, if I spoil this for you, and I'm not going to take responsibility if I do, I will say, I think you will still enjoy this movie quite a bit. But you have been warned. If you hate spoilers, then leave now. Now, first off, the marketing campaign for this movie really focused on Brooke Shields. And I guess this was after her career started, really going somewhere with Blue Lagoon and all that. And so, if you were to just watch the trailer for this, you would think that Brooke Shields plays a major part in this. And she doesn't. She is Karen Spages, which they don't hide that from anybody. But she dies early in this movie. But really, the rest of this movie, the finger, like I said, is really pointed at Alice. And I will admit, I really thought it was Alice. There are scenes where you think, oh, okay, they're revealing who the killer is right here now. And that's misdirection. When you go back and watch it a second time, you realize, oh my God, they pulled the rug out from under me. I could have sworn by just watching this scene for the first time that the killer was Alice. And we'll get into the kill scenes in this because one of those scenes is like masterful misdirection. Now, let's talk about the style of this movie because this is 1976. I looked this up in the slasher movie book. It surprised me. It's not in there. They do mention communion, but kind of as like a comparison to another slasher movie that's in there. But they don't have like anything dedicated to Alice, Sweet Alice, because I guess you could say, now it is a full-on slasher movie in my opinion, but it's handled much differently than your traditional slasher movie. it almost feels like a drama with horror elements. And I think maybe that's why it wasn't included in this book. In my mind, and you might think I'm wrong, I think it's a slasher movie. Because there is a person in a costume, unique costume, picking off victims one by one. That to me is a slasher. But I was getting some strong like Black Christmas vibes from this in the way it was directed, in the way the film looks, really. And then I was also getting Rosemary's Baby vibes too, especially in concerning the score. The score has a lot of those, really those 60s and 70s elements that we're used to.
Subject, Alice Spages, 12 years, 1 month, normal physical development.
And I'm finding that I prefer these older style scores in horror movies. For me, they feel like they just work. If you remember the movie Signs, M. Night Shyamalan, the beginning of it, that score did seem like kind of a Psycho-esque score. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't really like modern scores, although these days it seems like they're hearkening back to those older style scores. So I guess modern would be 5 years ago, if that makes any sense. But the big thing I want to talk about in this is the family dynamic. That's what really sets this apart from most other, not just slashers, but horror movies. Again, it reminded me of Rosemary's Baby because that was a family-centric horror film. This deals with a family. After this death happens, they're grieving for the loss of this child.
This is my house. You won't be here forever. I can't wait till you're gone. I forbid you to talk to your aunt that way.
And Alice as a character is very interesting because she's from a broken home. You know, her mother and father are split up. And so after this death, the estranged father has to come back into the picture and really man up and take care of his daughter and figure out how to get her the help he needs. Because just imagine if your child, you didn't know if they killed someone, you know, because their child is the prime suspect in this murder. But they don't, you know, they don't know. Of course, they want to believe that their child is innocent. Anybody would. But there's also that little doubt in the back of their head. And that's a recurring theme in this movie that constantly plays with the viewer's mind. We are not Allison's parents, so automatically we think Alice is the killer. That's the way this movie is delivered, and it's very hard for a director to convey that message properly. But Alfred Sole does a phenomenal job at this, actually. And looking, you know, at his back catalog, he mostly had a career in like television. It surprises me that a film was directed this well, and then the director didn't really go on to direct other big horror films, because, you know, he has a little bit of a Roman Polanski type vibe to him. Also, I love that this movie is bookended with murders in a Catholic church. I'll go ahead and talk about that last scene because that is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. There's quite a few scenes I love in this movie, actually. But, I already talked about the first scene, how Karen is actually killed. Well, then, the very last scene, you have the reveal that it was the father, Tom's assistant, Angela.
You don't have to be afraid of me.
And by the time, this reveal happens, at first you're like, that's not really what I wanted. But then after you watch this movie the second time, that is the most logical answer to this movie, because they do establish, even early on in this movie, that Angela does have a little bit of a screw loose. She has almost this weird obsession with her religion as well as Father Tom. She's very protective of Father Tom. And in her mind, she's carrying out these killings because she believes it's the right thing to do. These people are sinners. And jokingly, you're going to get those punish vibes from Silent Night, Deadly Night, because that's what she's doing. She's punishing her victims. But I guess the big thing I love about these kills is how realistic they are. Not in just the nature of the kills themselves, but also the reactions of the characters. That first kill with Karen, the reaction of her mother, Catherine, is so powerful and so strong. The actress that played Catherine in this movie actually shines quite a bit. Played by Linda Miller. There are a few scenes. One of my favorites is especially the scene in the rain. Let me set this up for you. You got the kill that is very unconventional, because it wasn't even supposed to be Annie in the first place. It was supposed to be the disgusting, filthy pig, the neighbor. So that's the scene that I'm talking about with that really displays misdirection like flawlessly. You have Alice coming in with a knife and you're thinking, oh, okay, this is going to be a kill. So Alice is the killer. And you're so wrapped up in the scene and how disgusting this guy is that you forget that you're trying to figure out who the killer is. So by the time that exchange happens between those two characters, Alice doesn't kill him. She's leaving the scene, and then automatically Annie comes down and she is killed, and you think, you know, you connect the dots. You think, oh, Alice just did this. That is perfect misdirection. Did not see that coming whatsoever. You know, it's amazing what a cut in a shot can do. You know, you have to pay attention to every cut because one character might take one frame and then the other character jumps in the next frame, and you don't even realize it because they have that perfect flow going there. Most directors can't pull that off to save their lives, but Alfred Sole does a fantastic job in this movie. But jumping back to that very final scene, I can't leave this review without talking about that final scene because it is freaking amazing. We already know who the killer is. We've known who the killer is for a little bit. Angela kills Dom. So very last scene in the movie, the Catholic Mass is going on, and Father Tom says, I'm going to go grab her. I'm going to get her. I'm going to bring her to justice. She trusts me. I can't screw this up. And sure enough, he goes up and, you know, because she's losing the head, she freaking stabs him in the neck. Again, in front of the whole congregation. Insane. And the reaction to the congregation in the first scene and the last scene is just joyous, just amazing. And then you got this beautiful movie in between all that. So this is such an underrated film, and it shocks me that a lot of people haven't heard of it. Although there were a lot of people on Instagram that actually said they love the movie. It's one of their favorites. So maybe it's just me, but it's just one of those movies I never hear come up in horror circles. Guys, I'm giving this movie a freaking Trapped on an Island. Love the hell out of it. Thank you, Damien, for recommending this one to me. And he also recommended another one called Madhouse that I'm going to be reviewing really soon because now I'm really curious to check that movie out after this one knocked it out of the park. So anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on Alice, Sweet Alice, also known as Holy Terry and Communion? Post below in the comments. Also, come over to Killer Flicks where we talk horror all day and every day. On Fridays, we do Free Fall Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and now Stardust. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.